I'm going to just mention it tonight, is the four C's. And we're not here to convince you of anything. We're not here to coerce you. We are not here to convert you. When we are not here to condemn you or your religion or beliefs. This will come in handy tonight. It sort of always does, because we'll be talking about Christian theology and we'll be talking about things that don't quite coincide with it. But it's not a condemnation, and if that's your belief, that's perfectly fine. Okay. All right, so the spirit of the resurrection. We're going to start out with these two things because it really makes a difference. No one knows what happened to Jesus' body. Okay. Now, I guess in some circles that would be sacrilegious to say that, but it is the truth. And there were no eyewitnesses. So, um, so we have stories about what did happen. And the idea of the resurrection, um, remember the resurrection itself is not, we're not just talking about the resurrection of Jesus, because the resurrection originated in Jewish theology, Jewish doctrines. And the idea that the resurrection was a bodily resurrection comes from the Jewish background. So, and the resurrection is understood by Christians, Jews alike, as a physical, literal raising of Jesus' body from the dead. That's the way that it's understood. And then, okay, for Christians, the resurrection of Jesus is a powerful symbol of victory over death and sin and promise of eternal life. All right. And many Jewish traditions, and it says many Jewish traditions because just like Christianity, the main original thing has been kind of twisted and turned and whatever, but mainly many Jewish traditions believe in a future resurrection of the body and potentially ushered in by the coming of the Messiah. Okay. And so let me just talk about that because we talked a little bit about last week. Okay. The the idea of the resurrection for the Jews, of course, when the Messiah comes, and remember the Jews don't honor Jesus as the Messiah, but when the Messiah comes, there will be that's when the resurrection will occur, and the resurrection itself, in both Jewish and Christian, is a reuniting the body with the with the spirit, the full body. And so that actually is with both. Now the difference, of course, okay, if for the Jewish tradition, when the resurrection does occur, the Messiah is coming, there is judgment. Okay, that's when the judgment will occur. And if you think about it, it's we have the revelation and whatnot, and that is essentially what they're saying what that's saying is that Jesus is coming back, and and he's going to divide up the good people and the bad people, all that kind of stuff. So that is in line with the Jewish thing. But um, the resurrection just basically is conquering death. Okay, the resurrection of Jesus was more than symbolic. It clearly that we do not die, and we live, we go on, our spirit lives forever. So anyway, now um okay, I'm going to go towards a spiritual resurrection, and and we're gonna okay, I'm gonna start with the appearances to women, uh, because that is what starts off with the scriptures. Now, I we're gonna read these scriptures carefully, and hopefully quickly. I may have a lot tonight. So, anyways, um, we're gonna start. We're gonna start with Matthew, and in terms of we're we're talking about spiritual. We're talking about spiritual stuff here. We're talking about what we would call the visions and whatnot. Okay, so George, I'm sorry I didn't get with you today, but would you like to read this?
Sure.
Okay.
In the evening of the Sabbath, when the first day of the week began to dawn, there came Mary of Magdala and the other Mary to see the tomb. And behold, a great earthquake took place. For the angel of the Lord came down from heaven and went up and rolled away the stone from the door and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his garments were white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards who were watching trembled and became as if were dead. But the angel answered, saying to the woman, "You need not be afraid, for I know that you are seeking Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen, just as he has said. Come see the place where our Lord was laid."
All right. So we're emphasizing here the angel of the Lord came down from heaven. And we, right away when we see that, we're talking about a vision, okay, or a dream. Now, and again, remember, all right, Matthew here is saying that an earthquake took place. That's one of the stories, but um, and and that's highly possible, but there's no, like I say, there were no eyewitnesses. And as far as I know, there's nothing historical. I mean, there were people like Josephus, but Josephus at least proved that Jesus did exist. I mean, it was in part of his historical stuff, but none of this was there. So, and when it says his appearance was like lightning and his garments were white as snow, we're talking about visions. That's what happens when you see. I don't like to use the word ghosts, but when you see spirits. Anyway, okay. So I put all three in here. So we gotta move along quickly, just so you can see there's a difference in the stories, and you can see the spiritual parts of it. Okay, now we'll go to Mark.
When the Sabbath had passed, Mary of Magdala and Mary, the mother of James and Salome, bought spices that they might come and anoint him. Early in the morning on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb as the sun was just rising. And they said among themselves, who will roll away the stone from the door of the tomb for us? And they looked and saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very large. And they entered the tomb and saw a young man sitting on the right, covered with a white robe, and they were astonished. But he said to them, "Do not be afraid. You seek Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. Behold, the place where he was laid."
Okay, so now we have the young man sitting on the right, in a white robe. And of course, when they say do not be afraid, the Semitic people, probably even now, um, were very afraid of spirits. Okay, it's kind of like when most of us would walk through a cemetery and it's like, whoa, I don't know, that it's that kind of fear. Okay, and so we have a different story of of what what was in the tomb and what they saw, because there was no. All right, let's go to Luke.
And on the first day of the week, early in the morning, while it was yet dark, they came to the tomb and brought the spices which they had prepared, and there were with them other women. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, and they entered in, but they did not find the body of Jesus. And it came to pass, as they were confused about this, behold, two men stood above them, and their garments were shining. And they were afraid and bowed their faces to the ground, and they said to them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember that he spoke to you while he was in Galilee."
Okay, now I pulled this verse out because um, remember the belief, well, the belief that we have, and the story writers, is that I mean that it was Jesus, that maybe Jesus didn't. Yeah, well, I mean he's alive, but they're writing as if it was like the Jesus that roamed the earth before and did his teaching, and um, that is the belief about the physical resurrection and Jesus coming back physically. But for for these women now, I mean, they and these are visions and dreams, and we'll see this when Jesus appears to people too. And you notice they have in here, and these words appeared in their eyes as delusions, and they did not believe them. Well, you see, again, they were very, very afraid of spirits. And this is very typical uh, when you have a vision of sorts. It's you are kind of delusional and whatnot. Um, and they didn't believe them, but I couldn't put all the verses in there. Um, it's kind of like they couldn't believe that, but they went, okay, they went and told the apostles. It's not that they didn't totally believe them, but they went and they told the apostles. They went back and all those different stories. And um, so they did follow, and they may perhaps, have believed somewhat. But again, these are stories, and these are people writing about spiritual things, and it gets real difficult. Anyway, all right. So those were the appearances to the women. Uh, they were they were visions, so to speak, and not uncommon. We have them too in this world. So now we'll go. All right, bodily resurrection or spiritual resurrection. Just now, we're going to quickly go through these. I just wanted to get all of the Jesus appearances, and then we'll talk about the spiritual part of it. Okay, go ahead, George.
And behold, Jesus met them and said to them, Peace be to you. And they came up and laid hold of his feet and worshipped him.
Okay, just keep all this in mind. All right, 16.
The 11 disciples then went to Galilee to a mountain where Jesus had promised to meet them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some of them were doubtful. And Jesus came up and spoke with them and said to them, All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Just as my Father has sent me, I am also sending you.
Okay. We'll go to Mark.
Now he rose early on the first day of the week and appeared first to Mary of Magdala, from whom he had cast 7 demons. And she went and brought glad tidings to those who were with him, who now were mourning and weeping.
Interesting here.
Mm,
Interesting here on this one, Mary. uh, Mary of Magdala did not have a problem. She knew right away. So just interesting. And Jesus basically, as you notice through here, he appeared to people that he loved. So go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
that's okay. After these things, he appeared to 2 of them in another manner, as they were walking and going to a village, and they went and told the rest, but they did not believe them also. And at last he appeared to the 11 while they were reclining, and he had upbraided them from their little faith and the dulliness of their hearts, because they had not believed those who saw him risen. And he said to them, Go into all the world and preach my gospel to the whole creation.
All right, now we go to Luke.
And while they were speaking and asking each other, Jesus came and overtook them and walked with them. But the sight of their eyes was blurred so that they could not recognize him. Then Jesus said to them, O dull minded and heavy hearted, slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken.
Okay, notice that. But the side of their eyes was blurred, so they could not recognize him. Once again, I wish I had a spiritualist with this because that is kind of what happens. You know, when you have a vision and whatnot, you are, you know, you're um, your thoughts are kind of blurred, your eyes are kind of blurred. Anyway, so here we go. We got some more here.
And it came to pass, as he sat at a table with them, he took bread and blessed it, and broke it and gave it to them. And immediately their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he was taken away from them. And
Now,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay. And they said to one another, Were not our minds dull within us when he spoke with us on the road and interpreted the scriptures to us?
So again, uh, and it's interesting that seemingly he sat at the table kind which which they didn't have tables, but anyway, he took the bread and blessed it, broke it, and it was I call them messages, okay? It was um it was putting those thoughts into their minds, made them realize that it was Jesus. And the interesting thing here too is that um, immediately their eyes were opened and and he was taken away from them. Well, that's what happens with these spiritual appearances and stuff. So anyway, all right.
She said this and turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned around and said to him in Hebrew, Rabuli, which means my teacher. Jesus said to her, do not come near me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and my God and your God. Eight days later, the disciples were again indoors, and Thomas with them. Jesus came when the doors were locked and stood in the midst and said to them, peace be with you. And he said to Thomas, put your finger here and see my hands, and reach out your hand and put it into my side. And be not faithless, but believing.
Okay, and this, of course, this is one of the, I guess you might call it a stumbling block when we're talking about the spiritual, um, Jesus and spiritual. But you'll see later how this plays out. All right, now, um, some of you may have heard of this, may not have heard of it, um, but let's talk about it. And again, this, well, it comes from spiritualism, but also the Indians. I don't know, I'm talking about the East Indians, um, yogis and whatnot. Materialization and dematerialization. All right, and so a basic meaning, okay, to cease to have material existence, okay, as in science fiction or spiritualism, to disappear without a trace. So, and how this applies to bodies is that, and it's not, it wasn't just Jesus, it wasn't just, and it can even happen today, is that you can make yourself invisible and then go through a wall or go through doors. We just read about Jesus appearing in the place where the doors were all locked and whatnot. So it is a phenomena, but it is possible. And okay, I I did attended a few lectures and stuff with spiritualism and whatnot, because this is what I have always thought was the case. And so I have an email that I sent to Reverend Dr. Lewis Gates, um, who's a spiritualist minister for many, many years. And so I asked the question of him because I didn't want to talk about it, not being an expert or anything like that. So spirit materialization is currently a rare event, but it has been happening for hundreds of thousands of years. It was taught from a materialized spirit that when Jesus had risen, he had actually materialized after his body died to meet with his followers and guide them. Okay, now, interestingly enough, I was, I was, I will just say I was lucky, okay, because I really didn't expect scripture references, okay, and I certainly didn't expect them coming from Paul.
Hmm.
All right, because Jesus would have been, a-okay with this, but I really want to take some more time to study this, but he says a careful reading of Paul's emphatic usage of Jesus' bodily resurrection reveals that Paul was repeatedly referring to Jesus rising from the dead in a spiritual body. Okay. I just found this so interesting. And so 1 Corinthians 15, it's really 42 through 44.
So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in the corruption. It is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body.
Okay. So, does it matter whether it's a bodily resurrection or spiritual resurrection? Well, let's read this and then we'll go. Jesus triumphed over death, the enemy of humankind, which can only destroy the physical form. He rose with a new form, a spiritual body, free from all weaknesses and limitations that bind and hold the body to the earth. He was totally transfigured. Now he could pass through a closed door or move to another location without any hindrance. He had victoriously ridden with a glorious body. Spiritual.
Well, remember previously in the Bible where he got on the ship with the disciples, and then instantly they were at the shore where they were intending to go. So that was very similar. That was teleportation.
Yeah, and I unfortunately there's so many of those scriptures that is part of some of those that I had just taken little tidbits from. But yes, it is it is it's just so amazing, okay, to me, and well, anyway, let's all right. So does it matter whether it was bodily or spiritual? Well, here's the thing. I mean, normally it shouldn't matter, okay, whether Jesus' body was resurrected or whether it was a spiritual thing. But how when it all plays out, it matters because the message of the resurrection is that we don't die. And when we die, our bodies return to dust and our spirits return to God. Normally, what we say, currently in this world is, our spirits transition to what we call the other side, I call it the spirit world. Okay. Because the spirit world is everlasting. I mean, our spirits never die. Our spirits are reside in the spirit world. Okay. And so, and we saw last week on the cross, Jesus said, I commit my spirit to you. And but what's happened, all right, and if you just take the resurrection, and the fact that Jesus was alive and came back, that should be simple enough to tell us that there is life after death, and that we should not fear death. Okay, and so, but what happened? What's happened with Christianity is it's not it's not that simple. Okay, it could be, but it's not, because at the heart of Christianity, the resurrection gets tied in with, well, the cross and the resurrection gets tied in with sins, atonement, and the fear of death. All right, got thrown in there about hell and heaven, and so we don't, as someone who came up, well, I was Catholic, but I've been other churches since. I mean, I really never knew that the resurrection was, that's what the resurrection meant. I knew it was special on Easter, but it should be eliminate the fear of death. I mean, and Christians will say that, but in between time, we it was really the Greeks that put in there the idea of hell and burning in hell, and the idea that heaven, you go to heaven or you go to hell. And so with that, the fear of death, I mean, the fear of death is there, and it is there today. And as far as I'm concerned, it's this fear of going to hell and all of that has created the fear of death, which should not have been, because that was the purpose, that was the purpose of the resurrection, that Jesus conquered death. So I just I try to make this as simple as possible without losing the point, but it's a hard thing to do. And so, and in addition to that, okay, Christianity has this, okay, in addition to the going to hell. No, I don't know. I guess when you first die, right, then you might go to hell, and then I don't know how the resurrection would affect that. But then we have the, well, it's Revelation or whatever, and Jesus is coming back, and then that's when the resurrection that we know, that is saying, because we're told to believe in the bodily resurrection, and then there will be judgment again somehow. Anyway, that's the Christian, and the only reason why it matters that Jesus was a spiritual thing is because the body, I mean, we're waiting for Jesus to come back. Okay. And when you read Revelation, you got to forget the physical body thing anyway. And judgment will occur. So as far as I'm concerned, okay, I am on the side of the spiritual resurrection. Okay, I'm not condemning anybody that still believes in the body and whatnot. But but it is sad that Christianity and that doctrine has complicated it because it was so simple that, and one of the things to remember, because I've asked this question, um, you know, when whether you're going to hell or heaven, and whether you'll be judged and whatnot, nobody knows. We don't know what will occur, but what we do know is that our bodies will return to the dust and our spirits will return to God. Okay, so, and how do I know this? Okay, some of you knew or know Martin. Some of you did not. And Martin was my partner with, we started the Aramaic Bible Institute. And unfortunately, he passed 2 years ago. But the reason I know is because I heard from him, and I get thoughts, support from him, and I know that his presence is there for me. And so just a couple of weeks ago, just out of the blue, my phone has a bunch, photos like everybody does. And this photo popped out. And so I said, okay. So I guess I can just do the message that, our loved ones are with us day to day. And if you got problems, you should call on them, because if you are open and you believe it, and you believe that these things can happen, you will get guidance, whatever. And remember that guidance. Remember, God works through us. I mean, angels, yes, but God works through people to give us our guidance. So anyway, I had to put that in there.
Nice photo.
Oh, thank you. I swear it just appeared from nowhere. Now, I did put the background in, but the picture just popped up. And I tried to go back and find where it came from, but I don't know, Anyway, okay. So contributions, thank you. And this is our usual. Yeah. Dr. Lomsa believed that the fear of death will ultimately be conquered through a new understanding of Jesus, which is what we study, his message of the kingdom, and the resurrection. So I'm just going to leave this out for discussion, and I'm open to discussion about any of that other stuff. But for me, the understanding of the kingdom being the guidance and counsel of God, combined with Jesus' teachings of love and meekness, sure, it has helped. I mean, it has reinforced. I mean, there is no reason to have any fear of death. But so all of us here have studied, most all of us here have studied the kingdom message, and knowing that, Jesus said, look, you go to your Father who is God, and you get the counsel. And so again, I'm just saying, that's me. But so has this understanding helped to alleviate fear of death?